It is currently 5:11 in the morning. 5:11, and I have not slept a wink. Can you imagine why? Oh, might be in the title, but I'll give you a hint. Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. Me personally, I loved it. I loved it. It's getting shit ton of unnecessary hate, but to each their own. If they don't like it, that's up to them. If they don't have a reason why they don't like it and it's just like nonsense, then little slow, you know what I mean? A little slow. I'm gonna be talking about one thing specifically, one thing, the thing that is actually making me film this video. The only thing. Steve Harrington and his fight with Dustin. Okay? His fight with Dustin. Steve, I'm gonna come out and say this right here, and right now. Steve was right. He was right. In everything he said, he was right. Dustin needed to hear it. Eddie got himself killed. There's no other way of looking at it. He had absolutely no reason to be doing what he did. Freaking Dustin was through the portal. He was halfway up the sheets, about to go through the portal. The bats were still breaking down the door. I can't believe people are arguing this. He got himself killed. He decided to be a hero. The exact thing Steve told him not to do. He decided to be a hero, and he got killed for it. He could have went through the portal with Dustin. I would have. That was the best action. That was the best thing he could have done in that moment. Could have gone through the portal with Dustin. Would have escaped the bats. Okay, he would have escaped the bats. Him and Dustin both. Dustin would not be hurt. Okay, they could have biked away. Perfectly fine. Okay, nothing wrong. Biked away. Maybe the bats would have followed them through the portal. Okay, maybe they could have gotten away. Of course they could have. They could have gotten away easily. You know how much time they had? Eddie was halfway up the rope. Okay, halfway up the rope. He stopped for a solid 5-10 seconds, maybe. Okay, not that long, but that's long time for them. 5 to 10 seconds. Okay. In these 5 to 10 seconds, he was sitting there in the rope. Bats still weren't in the room. He gets down off the rope. He cuts the rope. He flips the mattress and I think a chair or something too. Keep in mind, this is all going on over the span of like 30 seconds maybe. Okay? 30 seconds. So come on, 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. That's probably, to be generous, okay, to the people who believe Eddie didn't get himself killed, to be generous to their stance, I'm going to say it's 30 seconds. It was most likely a lot more. Then he proceeds to go to leave the trailer and outrun the bats and bike away. I don't think the birds or the bats or whatever broke down the door. Maybe they had just broke it down after he'd left, okay. But I mean, he still had plenty of time. In that time, they would have already been on their bikes biking away in the right setup, okay? They would have been gone, home free. No one had to die. Like, they could have easily escaped, him and Dustin. And then people like to bring up the standpoint too. It's like, oh, he was buying time for Nancy and them to get the drop on Vecna, okay? Completely fair. That was their whole purpose. Completely fair point. You know what I mean? Entirely fair. Entirely. Except for the fact that they died. The bats died. They actually genuinely died. They would not have had the time to reach the house. They wouldn't have gotten there. Not in the slightest. Eddie died for zero reason other than to further Dustin's character development or character story, character arc, whatever. That was the only reason he died. In the story, he died for no reason. He didn't have to die. Him going through that portal with Dustin would not have changed anything. Anything. Not a single thing. He would have been home free. Dustin would have been home free. The bats would have died on the way back to the house. Nancy and them would have been home free. He died for zero reason. The fact that people are arguing with Steve about this, saying, oh, this changed my opinion on Steve, this changed my opinion on Steve, I can never see him again, which I actually have read comments like that. The fact that people think they could have gotten back to the house before they would have burnt out is insane to me. Insane. Because it was Hopper and them in Russia that gave them this opportunity, right? After they had killed Eddie or done fatal damage to Eddie, they die. They fall from the sky. There was not enough time. Eddie did not stall for the time needed. Okay, is all I'll say. And what I mean by that is that entire sequence Eddie did of escaping the trailer, running away, and taking on the bats. That is not equivalent. It is less than the amount of time the bats would have needed to fly from the trailer to the house, get in the house, and do fatal damage to them. Okay, to Nancy and them. The bats did not have the time for that. Not in the slightest. They would have been dead. Simply. I don't get how that point's argued. I don't understand how they argue that Dustin would have died if Eddie didn't sacrifice himself. We literally watched Eddie bike away from them. And he got a fairly good distance too. And that was with them starting right behind him, okay? If you have 30, 20, 30, 45 seconds, okay, in front of these bats, they're not catching up with you before they die. Before Hopper and them would have set the fire and killed them, okay? They're not catching up to you before that. Eddie's sacrifice did not in no way go to... I'm not calling it a sacrifice is generous, okay? Generous. His death in no way changed what would have happened to Dustin. I don't get it. He was the reason Dustin hurt his leg. Like, that was his fault. He knew who Dustin was. He knew who he was. He was basically his best friend with Steve, whatever, you know, you get the whole story. It was his fault. He no way he thought for a single second that Dustin would stay behind. Doesn't make any sense. That's not who Dustin is. Of course he went after him. Dustin got hurt. He did more harm than good. The bats would not have reached the house in time. Let's just get that out of the way. They would not have reached the house in time. To throw a bone your guys' way. The people, not all you, I know. Some of you, hopefully most, believe Eddie's sacrifice was for nothing. Because it wasn't. But let's throw a bone towards the people who think Eddie did sacrifice himself. And that the people at the house would have been killed. The bats make it to the house. Keep in mind, they're on a clock. I'd give them less than 2 minutes to do anything. They aren't going up here to some random Joes. They are going up to this house full of people who were prepared to kill Vecna. I know scaling can get kind of weird in some places or whatever, but I feel like Vecna and the bats are two very different scales. Okay. They had the weapons to kill Vecna. The bats aren't doing any fatal in the time they would have needed. They would have had before the fire got to them. You know what I mean? There was nothing the bats could have done. They were cooked either way. The Vecna killing team would have been fine. At most, and this is assuming the bats reach the house which they would not have. They would have suffered minor injuries. Minor. Not even as bad as Steve when they first got dragged in there. They wouldn't have suffered any damage. Eddie died pointlessly. That's undeniable. He didn't sacrifice himself, because nothing came of his death other than trauma. He did more harm than good with dying. He wanted to be the hero. He wanted to prove he couldn't run away. That's perfectly fine. That's respectable. This was the worst possible opportunity he could have had to do it. I'd honestly put Eddie's character into question with this whole thing. The amount of damage he did to Dustin, both physically and mentally, by this one selfish stunt, is immeasurable. He caused Dustin physical pain from this stunt. Dustin tweaked his leg. I'm not going to say broke. I do not believe he broke his leg. Fractured, maybe. He caused damage to his leg. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Damage to his leg to the point where he was limping. I think it was like a few months after, whenever season 4 truly ended, that time skip they had. He caused semi-serious damage to Dustin's leg, and gave that kid, because he was still a high schooler, he is still a high schooler, gave that kid mental trauma, mental problems, whatever you like to call it, for years. He gave him trauma for years. The events of season 5 take place like 2 years after season 4, I believe. He fucked up Dustin. This was purely selfish. He had no reason to do this. They were home free. This is his fault. His own death was his fault. He gained nothing from that death. No one gained anything from that death. Dustin lost stuff because of that death. How do I word this? People try to argue that, at the very least, Steve's delivery on it wasn't the best. Okay. And where I can see where they're coming from with that, they're wrong. Steve's delivery in the argument was flawless. He's the team's mom, okay? Moms need to have tough discussions with their kids. This is what Steve was doing. Dustin was being a little shit. There was no other way Steve could have had this conversation and gotten the results that he had gotten. Genuinely. It was perfect on Steve's part. And real quick, I want to bring up some comments I actually saw, okay? These are comments I actually saw while, if this will load. Maybe not. Okay, I want to bring up a few comments that I saw when seeing these videos, and these videos are the reason I am up now. Okay, they're the reason. Is this still on? It is. Good. First one, okay? First one. Steve would have admired Eddie's bravery, not faulted his courage. That wasn't bravery. That wasn't courage. That was pure, raw stupidity and selfishness. There is no good. There's nothing good you can take from Eddie's sacrifice. Nothing. There was no point to it. It did nothing but bad You can't, it's not courage, it's not bravery, it's pure selfishness and stupidity. These comments were infuriating. It is now, shit, what time is it? Maybe? Come on. It is now 5:59. It is 6 in the morning, okay? I have not slept, and this video is the reason why. These comments are the reason why. Steve was jealous of Eddie. Are we dead ass right now? Well, I do agree to a certain extent. That played no part in this argument. There was no jealousy. Steve was worried about Dustin, and rightfully so. Any good friend would be. I do not get what the point of this comment was in the slightest. But who knows? Okay, next one. Let's see here. I don't know. Steve was wrong for this. I know Dustin hasn't been easy to deal with this season, but come on, Steve. Didn't have to bring Eddie up like that. Are we dead ass right now? Is this a serious comment? I'm not gonna lie, when I read this, I thought I had misread it. I genuinely thought this did not mean what it meant. Steve didn't have to bring Eddie up like that. That's exactly what he had to do. Eddie was the whole cause for this argument, for the way Dustin was feeling. It was Eddie's fault. He had to bring Eddie up, period. He had to do it in a harsh manner because he needed to show Dustin that he knew, that Dustin knew, that deep down, Eddie's sacrifice was for nothing. There was no point to it. None at all. Dustin needed to show Eddie that. Steve needed to show Dustin that. And that's what he did. This conversation could not have happened if Eddie was not brought up. Period. I was baffled when I read that. Steve is cooked. They want him to be the bad guy. What are we talking about, gang? These are real comments, by the way. I'll try to take photos of them and put them on the screen. Real comments. Baffled. I'm not even gonna touch that one. This is one comment that stood out to me though, and it's something I noticed personally while watching the scene, and I love that someone pointed this out. Steve did not try to fight, in all caps. Steve did not try to fight in any regard. No self-defense. Actually, maybe a little self-defense, okay, but that's self-defense. Steve did not physically try to get physical with Eddie. God damn it, Eddie. Fuck. Of course he did. He's dead. With Dustin. Okay. Not in the slightest. Love that perfectly. But these were the comments I was reading. And I can't comment on my account right now. Because of spam or whatever. These are Instagram comments, of course. My account was, restricted because of spam, and I tried reaching out, but I couldn't really, and they haven't responded. Of course, it's Christmas Eve, so I wouldn't hear back from that for a while. So I can't post comments. So you can imagine my frustration when I was scrolling Instagram, seeing reels about the show I love, and seeing comments like this and not being able to comment to the person directly. Baffled. Okay, baffled. So I did the only thing I could know. Only thing I know to do. I made a YouTube video. it was, I could not sleep. I tried to. I could not sleep with these, among other comments, these comments on my mind. Baffled. Well, that's all I gotta say. He didn't sacrifice him. See ya.